Hello, this is Doth Nihilus. I'm not live from the Abyss right now. I'm actually live from the living room. The Abyss is for all intents and purposes, my basement. Anyways, I have a special guest today. Unconventional, maybe, by my previous guests, but I wanted to introduce you to the Mrs. Lady Nihilus, as she wants to be called. So, let me introduce you to Lady Nihilus. Say hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Here, let me adjust this camera a little bit. There we go.
Yeah. You're the center of attention.
I like to think so, but not really. Anyways, so, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, already, right off the bat, huh?
Yeah, that's always my intro question.
I don't really know. I'm married to this crazy person right here. I'm an eclectic pagan witch, kitchen witch. I don't really go by strong titles, just whatever I feel in the moment. I practice very intuitively, and I don't really have a whole lot to say. We did not prepare for this. I just want to say we did not prepare for this at all. I did not get any chance to put my thoughts together for any of the questions he's going to ask. So this is all off the cuff.
I wanted to kind of wing it, folks.
Mm-hmm. So here we are, winging it.
Way to put me on the spot, dear.
I mean, you put me on the spot first.
Fair enough. Okay, so you said you were an eclectic pagan.
Sure.
How would you describe your eclecticism?
I mean, so like most people, I think, at least in the early 90s, I started off with Wicca. And so that kind of informed some of my practice, and then I kind of moved beyond that, and now I really just do spell work that is completely intuitive. I grab whatever herbs feel right in the moment. I burn whatever incense feels right in the moment. I don't really subscribe to any particular practice or tradition. I just do what feels right, and I put the energy where it wants to go. I don't really know how to describe it anyway.
I mean, honestly, I think that was a perfect description of your practice. You know, I don't think you need any standard system of formula or anything like that. I mean, compared to my practice.
We are very different
yes.
When it comes to our practice, yes.
Yeah, and we, as you can tell from our interchange, we complete each other's sentences. She's better at it than I am. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, usually his guesses aren't very good.
No, I really should stop. Just gonna say that. So for the long haul, what do you follow the Wiccan Read at all?
No, I don't really subscribe to that. I've always kind of considered myself more of a gray witch. I've always worked towards finding balance in my life and my practice. And while I personally don't practice anything that is baneful, I don't do hexes or anything like that, I'm not against it. I just have never found a reason to put that kind of time and energy into a negative working.
Okay, so you're not really into baneful magic at all.
No. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it in the future if I found I had a really good reason to do it.
Like an ex-husband.
But no, I don't know. It's a lot of energy and a lot of time to put into something negative, and I'd rather just move on and find.
So not for an ex-husband.
I mean, I'd consider it. It depends on what he did.
She'd consider it. Anyways, so you have told me that you read tarot.
Well, I've read tarot for you over the years a couple of times.
Yeah.
Here and there. I don't do it as much as I used to.
No, that's true. Even though you have like 1 million tarot decks.
I know. My hobby is no longer reading tarot, it's collecting tarot. It's true.
So, now you're an intuitive reader, right?
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts about, like, going by the book?
When I'm getting to know a new deck, I'll go by the book. I'll kind of read through what the author's intentions were for those cards. But my reading has always been best done when I just get the impression that I get from the card. And no two cards... Let me rephrase that. The same card could come up in two different readings and mean something completely different. Because the card isn't really meaning anything. It's just the impression that I'm getting from it. I might pick out like one little piece of that card that gives me that little tidbit of information. So, I have absolute respect, though, for people who read by learning the intended meanings of the cards, and that takes a lot of time and work and memorization. But I was never very good at that. I forget things.
Yeah. I'm kind of, and the way I described it with one of my previous guests is that
we got a heart. I just saw it fly by.
Yay!
Thank you.
The way I described it with one guest previously was that you learn the correspondences, and then you kind of build off of that to have kind of an intuitive system of tarot,
kind of unconscious almost.
Unconscious, because you have all of that stuff memorized. It's kind of like what Crowley says about, you have to learn the rules before you can break them.
Sure.
And that's kind of how I see working with tarot, is you learn the correspondences of the tarot, and then you can kind of go off and kind of create an intuitive base from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I started with a Rider-Waite deck. My mom's deck, actually. She gave it to me when I was, 14 or 15. She used it for years, and, she just had kind of gotten over reading tarot. She had no interest in it anymore. And so she gave me her deck and told me to have fun. And she gave me her book, which was Tarot for Yourself by Mary Kay Greer. And it's a workbook, so she had written notes in it. And I went through and I erased everything she wrote in there. And I kind of regret that now, because I would love to go back and read through some of the things that she'd written in there. But being a teenager, I erased everything she wrote in there and started doing it on my own. And I think that's probably, made a big impression on how I read tarot too. Because Mary Kay Greer, her techniques are a little bit different from some of the other traditional tarot readers.
Okay. Now you also said you were a kitchen witch. What does Kitchen Witch practice look like?
Well, for me personally, because everyone's practice looks different. I like to put my magic and healing in the food that I cook. When I have time and energy, I like to make.
Which is why I don't piss her off.
I don't put stuff. I don't put negative energy into my cooking.
No, you don't.
I'm gonna eat that. I want it to taste good. But
just my bowl.
But no, I also like to make healing salves and balms. It's also in my gardening, which I'm not all that great at, but oh my gosh, this year is the best garden we've ever done, and it's amazing.
I don't think I've posted a whole lot of pictures on my Instagram of our garden, but it's crazy wild.
It's gone gangbusters. In previous years, we've only ever been able to do buckets and pots because we lived in small apartments or whatever. And this year, being that we own our own house now, we put in raised garden beds and organic composted soil. And we have tomato plants that are 8 feet tall, and Wade's pepper plants are, like 3 feet, 3.5 feet tall, probably. Yeah. I've never been able to grow a pepper plant that got more than 1.5 feet tall. And the herbs are just huge, too. We've got more herbs than we know what to do with.
The herbs we have currently are Italian parsley. Mm-hmm. We have some regular parsley. I don't know what it's called.
Oh, yeah. We have 2 different kinds of parsley.
Yeah. We have the sage, which it's a common sage, right?
Cooking sage. Culinary sage, yeah.
Okay. And then we also have dill and some Italian basil.
Sweet basil. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that shit's just growing wild. I mean, we still have bucket gardens.
We do have some tomatoes in buckets, and we do have some herbs in pots. Of course, the buckets and the pots aren't doing as well. I think they get too warm, too dry, too quickly. But next year we'll put in a couple more garden beds, and we'll slowly kind of grow it out.
Well, we have 2 garden beds, but one of them it's only being partially used. We have a couple of zucchini growing.
Yeah.
In that one, but it's not really full all the way with dirt. It's kind of partially full.
And then we have flowers everywhere too. The previous owner really liked to garden flowers, and so there's balloon flowers and primrose and echinacea and butterfly bushes.
And morning glories. Don't forget those beautiful morning glories.
And the morning glories. And so part of my practice is the time that we get to go outside, and I can just enjoy that peaceful oasis of a backyard that we have.
Yeah.
And that's really meditative and healing. And it really helps with like my anxiety and stuff like that too.
Now, what was the first thing that got you into the craft? Anyways.
I don't really remember very well. There was the tarot cards, of course, and I had a friend that was getting into, again, her own form of paganism. We're talking back in the early 90s. So, there wasn't a whole lot of resources to find information. So I got a lot of my information from her to start.
That's kind of the interesting thing about the 90s, is that the 90s was kind of, everyone says how much of a renaissance it was. And a lot of that information was, like, on, on the internet, which was just burgeoning out and stuff. And you were kind of part of that, weren't you?
Oh, I had a lot of fun with that, actually. Yeah, I was in the AOL chat rooms back in the 90s. My favorite was Ask a Witch, where we'd hang out and answer questions all day. And almost all of those questions were, is it like the movie The Craft? And so we fielded a lot of those. But
it's like, sorry, Menon is not a real thing.
Right? So we got to talk a little bit about how they got some things right and how they didn't. But that movie was a gateway for a lot of people to find their way into the craft. That movie and Practical Magic.
Yeah.
Which are two of my favorite movies. They're fun to watch.
They're part of our Halloween staple.
You were in Ask a Witch? Who was that? Pineapple Abbey? You were in the Ask a Witch chat room? She remembers it.
That would be, I think that...
And The Craft was a generational landmark. Same with Practical Magic, yes.
That's Bob.
Oh, that's Bob?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, Bob. I don't know who any of these people are.
I know. I have my own little niche of people.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just and they're just meeting you. They're just being introduced to you now. So I mean, hopefully, my friends can be your friends.
Maybe. I was Oh, you were asking questions. Nice. Maybe we talked once back in the 90s in the Ask a Witch chat room. It's a small world, right?
What was the book that really kind of informed your path in the craft going when you first started?
So the very first book on Wicca-ish, right, that I read was...
Do you want me to bring it?
Yeah, go grab it.
Right. 1 minute.
That's the nice thing about being up here. All our books are up here.
It's this one, right?
No, the blue one.
The blue one?
It's kind of a tealy blue. No, it was just a couple books over. No, that one. Yep.
Oh, this one?
Yep.
Moving the starfish. Moving the fairy gate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Alright, so this is the first book that I actually ever read. This is Embracing the Moon by Yasmin Galenorn. And it's somewhat Wicca-ish. She talks about, like, fairy magic and goddess rituals and stuff like that in here. This is a very eclectic practice. And as a matter of fact, I lost this book years and years ago. And I just recently bought it again, or you bought it for me. I can't remember. And so I read through it again because I was kind of curious how far from this I had come. And there were a lot of key concepts in this book that are a little bit different from Wicca, that are still very much a part of my practice. And I didn't realize how much this had imparted itself on my practice until I reread this book recently. So now, I don't know if she writes pagan books anymore. She actually writes supernatural, like, romance novels and stuff now, which I think is kind of cool. I follow her on TikTok.
Oh, she has a TikTok.
She has a TikTok, yeah.
Wow.
Yep, so... Anyways, so this is the first book I ever read. This is what really put me on my path, I guess you could say. Ouch. My hair's too long.
Yep. I keep telling her I'm going to cut it when she's asleep.
I mean,
she's going to wake up looking like
really
Sinead
long.
O'Connor.
I'm not sure that I would object to that, to be honest. Sometimes I am just really tired of my hair.
But, okay, so now I want to ask a very interesting question. I know I know the reason why you're laughing is because you already kind of like, oh, I know what he's going to say.
Are you going to ask me how I feel about ritual?
Yes. Yes. Because this is where me and her diverge so much. It's a very wide chasm, and there is no filling it.
I don't like ritual. Nothing more than, like, basic. Like, super basic ritual. I was the one that in college, in my pagan group, would snicker every time we had a formal ritual, because I just couldn't be serious through the whole thing, because
you couldn't get past the intoning, from what I remember.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, yeah, so when people, you know, like, puff themselves up and they're, oh, God and Goddess, I just can't take that seriously. I know they're trying to get into it. I know that they're trying to put all of their being and their energy. I'm not that person. My ritual is very simple. I may light a candle. I may say 3 or 4 words over that candle. I might move my hands a little to push the energy around if I feel the need. And I release it, and that's it. That's ritual.
I remember when we were, because we were part of a group up in the UP called United by Light, and that's how she kind of rekindled her practice, and how I kind of got into paganism and the occult. And what's funny is that compared to the you know, leader of the group, and the way, you know, because sometimes we would do ritual, or she would do ritual, when the leader wasn't available. And the difference between the two were like night and day almost, because of the difference of how she operated versus you.
Yeah, I can write a full ritual where we cast a circle and we say a few things about whatever we're celebrating or whatever our purpose is, but it's gonna be very simple. I don't like calling, like some people call the Watchtowers, and I'm sorry, I think the craft ruined that for me, because I just feel like people are enacting the movie. And I don't mind calling the directions, right? Like,
right.
But I can't say Watchtowers. It makes me snicker every time. I'm just not a super serious person, and
I mean, how would you say, you've snickered a couple of times at you know, my ritual, you know.
Well, because you get into it and you start intoning, and it
yes.
Sometimes, I'm sorry, it's not you I'm laughing at.
Oh, but she is.
I do.
Okay.
But it's not your practice I'm laughing at.
No, it's me.
No, it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's bad of me, but it just sometimes feels absurd. I don't know why. It's me. It's all me, but I don't know why.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. You'll figure that out. But so.
But I never got any complaints on the rituals I put together.
No, that's true. You never did.
People liked my simple rituals.
Yeah. Because I think it what it did was it kept to the basic elements of the ritual itself, without being overly complicated.
Right.
Would you care to share the story of how we met?
The first time?
Yes, the very first time.
The very first time?
Not the horrible pseudodate that.
So, when I was in college, I helped found a group that did paranormal investigation. And when I left, of course, we passed it on to the folks, you know, that were behind us, right? Not graduating yet. And, but we kept in touch. And so a few years later, I had moved back to town. And so I went to a meeting to see how the paranormal group was doing, kind of reintroduced myself, and they started calling me for advice. And then one day they called me to come do an investigation with them because they didn't have enough people. So me and these two other women went off to do this investigation, and we walk into this house, and it happened to be Wade and his mother.
It was my mom's house.
His stepdad had passed away a few months or a year before that.
A few months. Before that.
And so, you know, we did our introductions and we got our little walk around the house, and, you know, he hid in a bedroom from us. You came out, said hi, got our names, and then you went into the bedroom.
Yeah, because I didn't. My mom's like, don't interrupt their investigation or anything. You know, you just, you know.
Well, but then you guys left.
Oh, that's right, we did leave.
Yeah. But you did. You said hi, nice to meet y'all, basically, and then right off into the room.
Yeah.
So anyways, after doing the investigation and everything, we gave our findings, our results, and then I got a friend request from this one, and I was like, I don't usually add random strangers to my Facebook, but I'll be nice this one time. And then a year later, I get a private message, and he's like, "Hi, I've seen you on all the dating sites. We should talk."
Okay, you make me sound really creepy.
I mean, but that's basically what you said.
Yeah. Well, because I was
there was more message to that.
Yeah, there was more message to that, but that was basically like if you were to take the paragraph and condense it down to 2 sentences. Yes.
Yeah.
That was the gist of it. But damn, you made me sound like such.
So I met my husband doing a paranormal investigation of his mother's house. That's the gist of it.
Yeah. And apparently, I'm also creeper. Thank you, dear, for making that so apparent to everybody now.
I'm so sorry.
Well, long story short, you said you were now when you were at my mother's house doing the ghost work.
Mm-hmm.
What was your role in all of that?
So I'm not a medium. I'm sensitive though. Okay. So, I can feel things, get impressions from things. Sometimes I can see them. Very, very, very rarely can I see things, and very, very rarely do I hear things. But I can pick up on things and get impressions. So I was there to be a third body, right? But also to help try to get some impressions and see what we could figure out for you guys.
Okay. You've used the term empath before.
Yeah.
How does, you know, and some people have, I've heard some people have negative views of empaths and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe your particular view of it versus other people?
I mean, I've heard a few different theories on what empathy could be, right? Some people believe it's a form of psychic sense. Some people believe it's hypervigilance due to trauma in your life.
I'm surprised I'm not an empath.
I think it could probably be all of those things. Personally, I feel energy flows. I get impressions from people. I'm really good at picking up on the, like the tension in the room, or the person that's upset but trying to hide it. I don't know, like I said, if it's a psychic sense or if it's hypervigilance or a combination of both. But
And you said you've seen apparitions.
Yeah.
Like, give us one example.
Okay, so I was doing a paranormal investigation with the group, and
I'm trying to read the questions.
Oh, it was just when Bob was talking about the Ask a Witch chat room.
Oh.
Anyways, so I don't know, there were 4 or 5 of us, and it was a 3-story house. There was the basement, main floor, upstairs.
Yeah.
So we split into 2 groups, and one group went up to the 2nd floor, and one group went down to the basement. And I was down in the basement with 2 other people, and I had the camera, right? And I'm kind of panning around the room. One of the women had an audio recorder. She was asking questions. And I can't remember what the other person was doing, but they were just talking and asking questions. And so I'm panning around the room with a camera and, kind of holding it off to the side here. And I'm looking along with it, and I see this woman standing in front of me. And my first thought was, oh, that's so-and-so. And then my brain went, wait, no, she's upstairs. That must be this person. Wait, no, she's behind me. Who is this? And as soon as my brain realized that it wasn't anybody in my group, she was gone. But she was there. Like, probably the best, clearest, full body I've ever seen. She was there solid in front of me for half a second. But nothing on the camera except for me going, whoa, who was that? So, anyways.
Nice. Let me think here. What?
Oh, nothing. I was going to touch you like I do, but then I was like, nope, stop, don't touch.
But let me try to think of, because like I said, I didn't rehearse this, and I've asked pretty good questions up until this point.
I mean, you don't have to just ask questions. We could just talk about things too.
That's true. What are your thoughts on like Crowley and Thelema?
It's a little bit too, I don't know what the word would be. So I listened to you reading and stuff, and honestly, I can't make heads or tails of what you're reading. I don't know how you get anything out of these books. It's so complex and verbose, and
Verbose is a good word to describe Crowley's writing.
Well, and I mean, some of it's allegory and story, and some of it's almost biblical in the way it sounds, and I can't imagine actually reading it and understanding it. I'm not a dumb person, but I can't imagine reading that stuff and actually like taking away anything from it, just from what I've heard you reading about.
Right.
Because I don't know if you guys know, but he reads everything out loud. It's just the way he focuses. And so everything he reads,
Chi and indirectly hears, regardless of what room in the house she's in.
Yeah, we don't have a very soundproof house.
No, we do not.
But yeah, so I think it is way too high magic for me.
Well, it's
too much high ritual, too shiny, fancy.
Have you seen my altar?
Every day.
Have you seen? I mean, from the stuff that I've showed people. I mean, they already kind of know that I'm kind of a bougie person.
Mm-hmm.
But like our main family altar, our main house altar has a Lord and God and Goddess statues on it, and those are actually ones that I bought when I first started, because when I first before I even finished my year and a day, I was already buying shit. I was buying wands and athames and all sorts of
books and statuary and candles and bells and everything.
Yes.
And so I've been practicing for when we met 20 years.
Yeah.
Right? And I had the pentacle that I wear, the goddess pendant that I wear, some candles. I think I had a basic athame. I never had a wand. I had a couple of books, not many. A couple of tarot decks, not many. And that was it. My little altar space was a little piece of cloth with a candle. If I had an altar space, which I usually didn't. And now I have cabinets and cases of stuff because he either bought it for himself or he bought it for me.
Yeah.
So very, very earthy, very minimal practitioner, very
high magic,
bougie
ceremonial
practitioner.
Yes.
Yes. Complete opposites.
Yes. But we complement each other really well.
Yeah, I think so. When it comes to like when we practice together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to keep it simple when I'm doing stuff with her. I don't intone for one, because then I don't want to have to listen to her snicker in the background. But yeah. So we have an herb cabinet with hundreds of different kinds of herbs.
Most of which he bought for me.
Most of which I bought for her. We have all sorts of different stuff. We have tons of different gemstones and mineral stones and stuff like that. Not all of which I bought for her. Most of which she bought for herself because
I'm a bit of a rock hound.
Yes, and when we're out on the beach, or anything.
Oh my gosh, we have shopping bags
that are in
like
the
grocery
garage.
bags full of rocks that I collected at the beach, that I was either collecting because I thought they were cool or because I wanted to paint on them or whatever.
Yeah, and she has tons of projects.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to make altar boxes out of silverware boxes.
That was my mom's fault. I bought 5. I bought 5 boxes to make altar boxes out of. My mom's the one that found the 200. 200? No, not 200. 40.
Yeah, I was like,
it was $200.
Wasn't it was like
40 or 50 of them.
I was like, wasn't it like 38 boxes?
Yeah, because some of them were broken.
Yeah.
It was $200 for 40 of them.
Yeah.
That's why I was thinking of 200.
It's like 200. That's more than's in the basement. It's like, where did the other 150 go?
Yeah, I definitely collect more hobbies than I actually do.
Projects, I like to call them. Yeah.
And then he's always like, "You gotta get rid of some of your stuff."
And it's like, well, you first.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Gets him every time.
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, my lip is very tight in that one because it's just like, I don't even know what I would get rid of first, to be honest. You know, I imagine it, you know, if you were to say, okay, I'm gonna pick for you, it's gonna be all the shit I want to keep.
I mean, that's because you want to keep everything.
Yeah, true. Except for like, I'm getting rid of. I've read the Kabbalion. I've read writings of Austin Osman Spare, and I couldn't. Well, the Kabbalion is not really like. I wouldn't even really say it's hermetic in its it's very oversimplified is what I know is hermeticism, and she's just like
simple is good. I don't know anything about hermeticism, so I can't. But simple is good.
I think the Kabbalion is a little bit oversimplified when it comes to its approach to hermeticism. Some people say it's based off. I think it's like based off of New Thought or something like that. Which I know I've read In Tune with the Infinite by Ralph Waldo Trine, who was like the bedrock of the New Thought movement. So if anyone's interested in New Thought, check that book out. It's basically a pretentious book of a very simple concept of the law of attraction, which may or may not get it wrong. I don't know. I'm still learning about that, but I think it gets it wrong.
I mean, everybody has a different idea of what the law of attraction is.
Yes.
And how to use it.
Yeah, but that's kind of how the basic concept of what the book is trying to illustrate, and I think it repeats itself too much, really, with the stuff that it talks about. And then, of course, Austin Osman Spare is not a person, at least for me. Crowley is much more easier to understand than Austin Osman Spare, if that should give you any indication of what Spares like to read. And like one person on Twitter pointed out, reading about Spare is much easier than reading Spare.
Okay.
That's how, and I agree. I found it way more fascinating to listen to examples about his life and stuff than it has been actually reading the shit he wrote. His art is interesting for sure, but I'm not really. I have different tastes when it comes to art, but his art's okay. That's all I can really say. I haven't seen a whole lot of his art, okay? I'll admit that. But what I have seen, it's been interesting. But anyways, that'll do it for our show today.
Oh wow, we're done already?
Yeah. Let's see. What's the time look like here? 44 after.
Oh. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Yeah, do you have any questions here? Let me change this real quick so people can actually, we can actually read what
Well, I could read what he said.
I can't. Hang on, we're telling.
Oh, that's just Instagram doing its thing. Keep going.
Anyone have any?
No, I guess not.
No questions.
Hmm.
All right. Well, anyways, it's been fun hanging out with you guys, and hope you liked our discussion and the stuff that we covered. Anyways,
I hope you enjoyed meeting me, because I enjoyed meeting you. Yes, I'm a weirdo. It's okay.
196, 156, 93, and blessed be.
Blessed be.